It is very probably that you, like me, and a lot of people have problems when you go, when you introduce yourself to people, whether it could be at school or a party or at work or anywhere, and you have a hard time remembering the names. It's a very common thing. It's a what different to the to people faces. We tend to be much better with faces than names. Why is that? Well, the faces are much more informative. We see a lot more features on the face. Um, we pay attention more to the skin color, to the color of the hair, the teeth arrangement, bone structure, and it's just the face shows more. It's easier to remember, and many times it's much more interesting. If you remember, probably you can think about someone that you met when probably when you were much younger, or at any time you meet someone that you like. You can meet a girl probably and you really like her, and you meet her, and when you meet that person, it's easy to remember her name or remember his name. Why? Because you're thinking about that person and you repeat and rehearse that in your mind. So it's easy. It's not just someone that you met, and when you heard, when they say their name, you're like, oh hi, I am Mauro. Oh yeah, I'm David, and you're like, okay, and then David in your mind only lasted probably like 2 or 3 seconds, and then he's gone. When you meet that person that you're interested, you pay attention to their name, and you just get your attention. So you keep them more in your mind, and you want to have that will to remember the name. Um, it's a very it's a very common thing that we work much better with the faces than names. We usually, how many times we found ourselves saying, talking to someone saying, hey, mom, do you remember that girl, dirty blonde, and she was in school with me probably when I was 16 or something, and she was really tall, and she had a brother that played football or stuff like that, and many times you remember the faces of the people, but you say, you know what, I have no idea of the name. The person that was probably the girl that was a cheerleader, or the guy that was the quarterback of the team or something like that. But the face, we can put it easier, keep it in our minds, and a long-term memory is different from the names. Well, it also turns out that the short-term memory relies more on what is called like oral things, which is more like short sounds. See, like names, it's easy to remember, they're short term, but if we don't rehearse, we don't repeat them, we're not gonna keep them in our heads. Long term relies much more on what is vision, or what is the meaning of words. So that's why we remember more. Years go by, and we remember more the faces of the people. We sometimes don't remember the names, and even people that we know. Just think about how many kids we have, how many people we've been together in a school in the same classroom for sometimes for years, and we remember the guy, we remember the girl, but we just don't remember their names, until someone's go, oh yeah, his name was this, he was Alexander or something. Oh my God, that's true. But that happens it's a very common thing. So I wanted to give you 3 tips for, it's something that it's important related to remembering the names, and it's something that is important with your presence when you introduce yourself to people, and it's something that is going to have to help you with the presence with other people, with your charisma, and the way you present yourself, the way you interact with them, and the networking. The first one is, of course, shaking hands. I had the idea that when you introduce yourself, let's say you get to a party and you meet someone. If you meet a guy, I say always shake hands, whether it's a guy or a girl. If it's you shake hands with a guy, usually you can go with the hands, with the fingers a little bit open. You shake hands, and your hand it's gonna be a firm shaking of the hands, and very different or not very different, but different to what you want to do it with women. You want to introduce yourself to the guy, you have the eye contact, you shake hands with him, firm, not so firm that you're gonna look like, it's not like a macho introduction, it's just firm enough like for a guy, different from women. You don't go with the same hand, with the fingers open, and you go a little more tender. It's more kind of like shaking hands, like grabbing a baby. You don't want to go for more than that. And again, you want to keep the eye contact with them. It's very important that if there is a person in the group that you're interested, for any reason you have a little more interest in meeting that person, you want to pay more attention to them, and you want to keep eye contact with that person a little bit longer than the other ones. Not too long that it's going to be creepy, but just a little bit longer, and really pay attention to that person. In order to, you want to make sure that you repeat their name. You want to try to repeat the names of everyone that you meet, but the person that you really want to meet, you got to make sure that you grasp their name, and don't distract yourself immediately after you introduce yourself to them. You got to repeat and rehearse that name several times in your head right after you met it. Otherwise, it's going to be gone. So you want to pay attention to that. When it's more than 3 or 4 people, sometimes it can be a little bit odd shaking hands with everybody. So I would say if it's 3 people or 4, you can shake hands with everyone. If it's more than 4 people, let's say, you can just, you can say, hey, hello, everyone, and that is good. But I do have the idea that if it's less than 4 people, shake hands, even if it's women. Sometimes you shake hands with guys, and when it's a woman, you don't know if you're gonna go to shake hands or you're just gonna kind of go for the pat, or you're just gonna go. It can be kind of an awkward moment. So it's better for you to look more confident and say, hi, hello, my name is Mauro. They say your name, you keep eye contact, and try to repeat the name, and go for the next person and the next person. So again, I'll say even if it's a woman, it's different shaking hands with them, but I will rather shake hands with everyone. Second one is remember the story. When you're talking to someone, you get to know one person, and usually you talk with that person. Let's say Hannah, and you met Hannah that night, and you see that person. You probably won't see that person again in a while, but when you meet that person again, and Hannah talked to you about, oh, you know what, I just got a puppy, but it was kind of sick, so I'm gonna leave early tonight because I want to spend more time with him. I gotta take care of him and stuff. So the next time you see Hannah, you really want to remember stories that at least the persons that the people that you're interested in, remember their stories that they told you. So the next time that you see him, you can go to Hannah and say, hey, Hannah, so how is your puppy doing? And to them, that means a lot. It means a lot that you remember their story, that you remember what we're talking about. It's something that is very important. Of course, it's important to remember their name when you see him again. You really want to do that. They love when you remember their name, because why? Because their name is our names is the sweetest sound we all can hear. Every person, we love to hear a sound, loud and clear when people call us, and it's very interesting when it's a really good impression when someone that you just met or you only seen once or twice, they remember your name, and then they go after you and say, hey, Hannah, how are you doing? It's good to see you again. So how is your puppy doing? See, the name means a lot. The story is even more. Why? Because names, sometimes people can memorize them. They say, okay, I can find a lot of people that they probably memorize a name, but you don't find a lot of people that can really memorize a name and they remember the story. And sometimes when they're telling you that story in the moment that they met you, they deep inside they're thinking that you're really not interested in the story, or they're doubting. They really don't know it. And the moment you repeat the story, the moment you ask about the story, you're letting them know that you were really paying attention. You kind of make them feel like they are special. Okay, they're not just some random person, one more person that you met at an event. So the name is very important. You want to remember that, of course. The story is gonna give you, is gonna help you even more with that person, and it's gonna make him feel special. One last thing that I wanted to talk about was, if you have a hard time remembering the name, one technique that you can use is you try to see that person as a funny person, the name, something related to that person, something related to the name, something related. Let's say that you meet a guy whose name is Michael, and Michael turns out he's a black guy, and Michael turns out to be real skinny. Okay, so in your head, of course, you're not gonna tell that to the person, and you want to create a real vivid image of Michael and say, okay, Michael was a skinny black guy that I met at the party. So you can think of Michael like, okay, I can think about a toothpick that has the legs and the arms, and that toothpick turns out to have the face, let's say, of Michael Jackson, you know. And if Michael turns out to be, you know what, Michael was going to Boston University. So you can have the toothpick with the face of Michael Jackson, you know, and he's wearing a sweatshirt that says Boston University or something like that. You just have to relate their name you relate it to person, to places, to objects. If it's something funny, if it's something weird, something odd, it's gonna be super easy to remember, just because it's weird. It's just gonna pop up easily, faster in your head. So try. You can also play with the names rhyming with something, or relate their names. Okay, this is David, and David, like, let's say David likes football. So you can think about a football player whose name is David, and David was probably going to the University of Texas in Austin. So you can think of that person, the football player whose name was David, and he was wearing a T-shirt of UT Austin or something like that, you know. But just try to relate it to something that is funny, something that is odd. Okay. All right, guys. Well, so just remember that it's when shaking hands, you know, it's different when you do it with guys, when you do it with women. It's different. You can probably think, okay, if you're gonna do it or not when you have a small group or a larger group. You want to remember the names, and a very important thing also is remember the story. Remember the story that they told you, especially if it's one person that you had a special interest in meeting. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I hope it helps. Give me a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.